This is Plant-Based Briefing, Strategies to Eat Less Meat by Michael Greger, MD at nutritionfacts.org. And I'm Marian Erickson, host of this plant-based podcast where I curate, get permission, and narrate a variety of articles on plant-based and vegan living in about 10 minutes or less every weekday. Today's article is from nutritionfacts.org. Founded by Dr. Michael Greger, it's a non-commercial, science-based public service providing free updates on the latest in nutrition research. There are no conflicts of interest, no ads, no corporate sponsorships. They do it because there's a lot of confusing and conflicting nutritional advice out there, usually presented by people with a financial interest. Dr. Greger does speaking engagements, he's written books and sells DVDs, but 100% of all the proceeds from these things has always and will always be donated to charity. He's not in it to sell you misleading information. He's there to share the truth. He does take a salary, but it's different than being motivated with conflicts of interest. So now let's get to today's plant-based briefing. Strategies to Eat Less Meat by Dr. Michael Greger at nutritionfacts.org. What is the most effective way to help people reduce their meat consumption? According to a survey of more than 30,000 U.S. residents, a third of American adults self-identify as meat reducers, meaning 1 in 3 of us is trying to cut down on our meat consumption. Why? For those earning less than $40,000 a year, the number one reason is cost. For those earning more than $40,000, the number one reason is health. And indeed, if we were to define a healthy diet, compared to how we're eating now, we should be eating more plant-based foods, including fresh fruits and vegetables, whole grains, legumes, meaning beans, split peas, chickpeas, and lentils, seeds, nuts, and at the same time, less animal foods, particularly fatty and processed meats. In an editorial entitled Plant-Based Diets for Personal, Population, and Planetary Health, co-authored by the chair of nutrition at Harvard, healthy plant-based diets are not only more sustainable, but they've also been associated with lower risk of chronic diseases such as obesity, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and some cancers. What do we mean by plant-based? Basically, any diet that reduces the amount of animal products and increases the amount of plants. Again, vegetables, fruits, whole grains, legumes, nuts, and seeds. Transitioning global diets towards healthy plant-based dietary patterns would require large-scale public health efforts, but could be instrumental in ensuring future human and planetary health. Indeed, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, describes plant-based diets as a major opportunity for mitigating and adapting to climate change, and includes a policy recommendation to reduce meat consumption. Okay, but how do you do it? In a systematic review of experimental studies on strategies to reduce meat consumption, one of the most effective experiments came out of the Midwest. Sadly, research shows that the provision of information on its own can be of limited utility in facilitating behavioral change. However, default interventions have been successfully employed in a variety of pro-social contexts, making the right option or the healthiest option the easiest option, the default option. Take, for example, organ donation. Every year, thousands of people in the United States have died waiting for a suitable donor organ. But wait, 85% of Americans approve of organ donation, yet less than half have made a decision about donating, and fewer still had granted permission by signing a donor card. If you look at Europe, there's nearly a tenfold difference in the organ donor rates across different countries. In some countries, consent is only about 10%, while in others it's up to like 99.9%. What's the difference? Opt-in versus opt-out. In opt-out countries, the default is that people are organ donors unless they actively register not to be, and in the opt-in countries, like the United States, the default is that nobody is an organ donor without explicitly registering to be one. So there are all sorts of calls for campaigns to change public attitudes about organ donation. But remember that 85% of people are already on board. If we want to change behavior and not just attitudes, changing the default condition may be more effective. So does it work for diet? In the default treatment, participants received at their table a menu listing only 5 meat-free options. But they were informed, verbally and in writing on the menu, that they could also consult a second menu that was posted on the wall about a dozen feet away, which had your standard array of popular non-vegetarian dining hall dishes. In the control condition, both lists of options were mixed together on the same menu they were handed. When you do that, only a minority of people choose the meat-free options, between 5 and 40%, depending on if you describe the meat-free options in an appealing way, like pasta with Provençal vegetables, or in unappealing terms like vegan calzone. Okay, but what about the default condition where the menu in front of them is all meat-free? They can still get up and order all the meat they want, but the alternate menu is a few steps away. You're not taking away anyone's options, but just by making it the default, meat-free choices shot up to like 75 or 90%. Even an unappealingly described meat-free option totally won out. Even just adding more vegetarian options, from a quarter of the options to half the options, increased the sales of the vegetarian options between about 40 to 80%. You just listened to Strategies to Eat Less Meat by Michael Greger, MD at nutritionfacts.org. And I'm Marian Erickson, your host. And if you're interested in a couple related episodes, I'll put these links in the show notes, but check out episode 296. There's still time to combat climate change. Start by eating plant-based. And 475, LinkedIn's San Francisco office quietly shifts to 65% plant-based menu. So please share this episode with anyone who might benefit, and thanks for listening.